And we will go ahead and get started. Just want to welcome everyone and thank you for taking time out of your busy days to listen and learn about this wonderful learning opportunity provided by KDE. And we so appreciate Christy Biggerstaff for being here with us to share her expertise on this and to inform you of what all is going on in relation to letters and the reading academies. And so, Christy, I'll hand it over to you and you take it away.
Thank you so much, Mary. I am Christy Biggerstaff, and I'm going to, now Zoom is not usually my wheelhouse, so give me just a second to see if I can share my screen and get my PowerPoint going. And I got to flip it around here. Hold on just a second. Now, can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Good deal.
Perfect.
Perfect. Good. My name is Christy Biggerstaff, and I'm the Director of Early Literacy in the Office of Teaching and Learning at KDE. I have been in this position since July of last year. Previous to coming on to this position, I was in Monroe County, and Monroe County kind of sits down at the very bottom of the state in the center. We're on the Tennessee line. So I was there for 20 years. I've been in a plethora of positions. I was a 4th and 5th grade reading teacher. I was an assistant principal, a principal. And then for the last 8 years of my career there, I was chief academic officer and instructional supervisor for the Monroe County School District. So curriculum, instruction, and literacy has always kind of had a thread throughout my career, something that I'm passionate about. And when I was called by KDE to lead the implementation of Senate Bill 9, it was something that I could not say no to because it was just too exciting, that the change and the shift that they were wanting to make. So today we are going to talk about letters, but I kind of always want to start out with why Senate Bill 9 kind of come to fruition and why we needed it so badly, and just some of the pieces and parts of Senate Bill 9 so you can have that information. It's just vitally important that I keep speaking to this so everybody knows knowledge is power, and so I try to speak on all of these pieces so you know what our direction is and what is included in Senate Bill 9. So I always start out with the why. Why KDE and the legislators deemed that we had to focus on early literacy. So as you can see on my screen, that is the K-Prep and KSA proficiency results for 3rd grade reading back to 2015. Now, I will say that I could have pulled way further back. They all look the same, unfortunately. It is a pattern in our reading assessment results, but just picked out this portion so you could see that essentially half of the students in the state of Kentucky are not reading at proficient levels. And the significance of 3rd grade proficiency is research-based, it's documented, it is rock solid. If they are not proficient by 3rd grade, then they are more likely to drop out, have attendance issues, they're more likely to struggle in all the other content areas, they're going to have self-esteem issues. It's just it's imperative that we get them to proficiency by 3rd grade. And as you can see, half of the state students in 3rd grade are not reading at proficient levels. COVID come in and did exactly what we knew COVID was going to do and exacerbated all of our issues. In 2021, 30% of our kids were proficient and distinguished. We bounced back a little bit in 2022 with 45%. But again, I don't think any of us on this call today would say, we're okay with just half the students being proficient in the state of Kentucky. Like none of us know, or all of us know that that's not okay. So we have to do something different. And let's deep dive just a little bit further into the proficiency results in the subgroups. And I've looked at this data over and over and over again, a multitude of times, but it's always just very heartbreaking to think that 75% of the Black students in the state of Kentucky in 3rd grade are not at proficient levels. The 63% of our economically disadvantaged, 71% of our English learners. Like at this point, that getting them to proficiency is kind of a moral imperative. We must think unconventionally about the way we have done literacy, because obviously the data shows us, and data doesn't lie, the data shows us what we've been doing with literacy in Kentucky is not working. So Senate Bill 9 was the bill to hopefully change these results and to turn our state around in literacy for all of our students. So let me talk to you just a few minutes, and I'm going to go through these slides very quickly because I know you've come to talk about letters today. So I'll get to that part here in just a little bit, but I do want you to be informed about some of the pieces in Senate Bill 9 and the different approach that Senate Bill 9 is going to give us to literacy. So the first piece is going to talk about early intervention and instruction. So as part of that, by January 1st of this year, the superintendents were supposed to select a reliable and valid universal screener and a reliable and valid reading diagnostic assessment. Now, and all teachers need to be trained on how to properly give that assessment and read those results. We do have a list compiled of approved universal screeners and diagnostics. We just added a couple of more this week, actually, to that list to complete it for this year, because we know that you all are making those decisions now about universal screeners and diagnostics for the upcoming 23-24 school year. I'm going to be real honest with you. Before coming into this position, I was a district assessment coordinator. I was a building assessment coordinator. I was a federal program and grant manager. Like money and purchasing and assessments were all my thing. I had never opened up a technical manual until I come to this position. And it was so vitally important that we did, our due diligence to ensure that we put assessments on a list for you, that we were assured they were reliable and valid. And that's what we have done. So, I know that there's not a ton of assessments on that list. I think there's 7 or 8 universal screeners and 7 or 8 diagnostics. But again, we didn't want to throw any assessments on the list that didn't meet our criteria. And we had very specific criteria that was linked to the National Intervention Council and other different areas. We wanted to make sure that they were indeed reliable and valid. So on that page, and I've linked that page to the PowerPoint that I will give to Miss Mary when this is done, so she can send that out if she would like to. But on this page, you will see that we have all of those. We have an at-a-glance document. It's got all the important information on there for people to look and see how long it takes to give the assessment, how much it costs, because that's very important, those types of information pieces. So once you give a child a universal screener, and that universal screener, and all of those look different. All of them have different benchmarks. All of them have different norms. It kind of is specific to the universal screener that you're given. But if they are deemed to be at risk for not meeting proficiency in kindergarten through 3rd grade, then 2 things happen. They have to be given a diagnostic. So that's a question I get a lot. You do not have to give the diagnostic assessment to every student. Only the students who are deemed to be at risk are given the diagnostic. And the second thing that happens is they are to be giving a reading improvement plan. Now, that reading improvement plan is what we're going to talk about next, just very briefly. So the reading improvement plan is basically a plan that you develop to help get this child to proficiency. So it has a lot of different pieces. They need to have intervention and evidence-based reading instruction. They need to have, those services. They need progress monitoring to make sure that they are getting there. Many of you already have MTSS structures in place in your schools. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use the plans and processes and teams that you have in place to help you implement the reading improvement plan. And we have, I so wanted when I came to this role, because as a district person and as a school person, instructional leader, I was told to do tasks, and I always wanted so desperately to have like a template or, show me what you want and I will do anything you ask of me, but show me like the end goal. And so when I come to this position, I desperately wanted to do that for you all. So we did create a reading improvement plan template. You do not have to use that template, but I was hoping to at least give you some type of resource that you could look at and say, oh, well, what we've got in, already in our school, we can turn this around and make that work for a reading improvement plan template, or you can print that off and use it. It's there for you as a resource. So that has already been sent out several times through our standards-based newsletter. If you've not signed up for the standards-based newsletter, do so. You can go to the KDE website and sign up for that. You will get information delivered to your mailbox once a week about things that KDE is doing and good resources. So we've sent that out a couple of times. It is on our early literacy resource webpage. If you just go to KDE and type in early literacy, it will pop up. So that plan is there. And in addition of that reading improvement plan, you have to have a reading improvement team. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. You have probably PLCs and structures in place in your school that you can utilize for a reading improvement team. And the Senate Bill 9 states that it needs to have a parent or guardian on that reading improvement team. And I get a lot of questions about that. Again, you can do that in different ways. They just need to be communicated with. You need to make sure that the parents and guardians of our students know that they are at risk for not meeting proficiency. Here are their scores, and this is what we're going to do as a school to help get them to proficiency. Part of the reading improvement plan comes a read at home plan, and this was very specific in Senate Bill 9 too. Again, it's just to help provide parents and guardians with resources to help ensure that they can help their students at home. And we have been working on the Read at Home plan to give you, again, I so desperately wanted to give you resources. So that is what we have been doing. It's very close to being released. We may hold on to it until July, end of July or 1st of August. So then you'll know that it's there. We'll put that on the website. We'll send that out in standard-based newsletters. But basically the Read at Home plan that we have created, you will be able to print that off online, input your student data very quickly and easily, and send that home with the students. And, there's just really no other way to say this. You can't make parents help their children. There's a lot of parents out there that want to help their children and want to know what's going on at school. So this will provide them with information they need. It's very easy, quick strategies that they can do at home. They won't have to buy resources or anything like that. They can just take that packet. We give them the information, and then they can help their children with their gaps in their literacy instruction at home. So again, we do have a guidance document that's already there, and that guidance document is basically geared toward our administrators and district leaders in the school to help them with best practice engagement activities and relationship building with parents. But the Read at Home plan that we're creating, the resource guide, will be hopefully it's developed. It's just getting edited and gussied up, for lack of a better term, so we can get that out to you. We wanted to give you a good solid document so you could print that off and use it. So that is coming soon. Now, the reason you're all here is to talk about letters, and that is another part of Senate Bill 9 and the Read to Succeed Act. And it's my favorite part to talk about because it truly brings me joy every day in this position, listening and getting texts and emails from people who are participating in this professional learning. So to ensure we knew that in order to change literacy in the state of Kentucky, that we had to educate our teachers on how to teach reading effectively. So that is the whole purpose of the Kentucky Reading Academies. It is to increase those student outcomes that I talked to you at the first of this presentation, to get that 50% way up, and to ensure that you have high quality, job embedded professional learning on how to teach our kids to read. So that is a feat that KDE has never done before in my 20-year career. They have never given professional learning at this depth for free. So the first thing that you need to know is that it is absolutely free to participate. Senate Bill 9 has the funding involved in it to allow us to give this to you free. So it's funding this professional learning, and it is not an inexpensive professional learning. Each of the licenses for every participant of letters cost $1,500. So it's not something that I know as I said earlier, I was a federal and state grant manager, and I would not be able to afford to send many of my teachers to letters because it was costly. So this removes that barrier. It's completely free. It invests in you, the educators. It's not a program. It's not something that you have to implement, scripted type of thing. It's information. It's knowledge. It's evidence-based. It's based on the science of how our kids learn to read. It's transferable to any kind of curriculum or program that you already have in place. A matter of fact, though, here's what happens, and what I hear from many of the participants of letters is they get into the learning, and generally about 2 units in, they're like, what I'm doing in my classroom does not equate to the knowledge I'm learning with letters. So I get a lot of those emails of, this really isn't jiving with this. What do I do next? Kind of thing. So, but it is transferable. It's knowledge, it's information. So you'll be able to implement it into your classroom immediately and with anything that you've got going on. So what is letters? Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. So you can see why we have an acronym there. That's a long title. It basically helps you determine what to teach, why some students struggle, and then gives you some strategies to help those students overcome those struggles, and then how. And I think the how is so vitally important and impactful. Things that I did not, and like I said, literacy was a thread that was throughout my entire career. And I just didn't know. I didn't know this information. And let me back up and say, Kentucky is not the only state that's going through this. Multiple states. I think now we have 32 states that have literacy bills that are similar to Kentucky. This is not just a Kentucky thing. This is a United States thing of literacy is an issue throughout the United States, and we have to do something to change it. And we have to go back to that science. But the how students learn to read was probably the most impactful portion of letters for me, because it was information I had never heard before. I had no idea. I thought going into letters that we learn to read just like we learn to talk. But learning to speak is natural. We're born with that ability. We're born with the ability to know, to mimic our parents and guardians, and that's how we learn to speak. Learning to read is a completely and totally different process. It's scientific, and it's very systematic in the way that it's laid out. And again, it was all new information for me. So who is eligible to participate in letters? Anybody that works with K-5 students in the state of Kentucky. If you are a public school educator, you are eligible to sign up for this learning. And that's in any role: special ed, EL teachers, resource teachers, interventionists, coaches, administrators, any of those roles. District leaders who impact our K-5 students can sign up for letters and complete that. And I will say that very exciting to have a rank change opportunity involved with letters. And let me explain that, because I get a lot of questions about that too. So if you are wanting to complete letters and earn a rank change at the same time, so we are providing letters for free. It doesn't cost you anything, but if you want to get a rank change, that does come at a cost. So you can't get a rank change for free. But I will have to say that the cost of the rank change is minimal compared to what it costs to go and get a degree through a university or a college. So I believe most of them are around $5,000 for the rank change program, and they will work with you on payments, a payment plan, that kind of thing. Right now, I know that we have 2 cooperatives that are offering that have approved programs. I know we have our other cooperatives that are working to get theirs approved. You do not have to be in like a member of that cooperative to join. Anybody can join in the state of Kentucky that is hooked up with letters. So you have to first join phase 2, and the phasing language is so complicated. I get a lot of questions about it. Phase is just a fancy word for cohort. So we started our first cohort last year that's going to go through the 2-year professional learning, and that was called phase 1. So they're going to go through that together as a cohort. Phase 2 is our second cohort that is going to be starting the learning in September of this coming year, and they will do that learning together. And then we're going to have a phase 3, which is a third cohort that will go through the learning together. So we are only offering this opportunity for those 3 phases. So this is the sign up for our phase 2. But again, if you are interested in joining the CEO rank change opportunities, I think they are fantastic. And if you do not have your master's or rank 1, that is something that will impact your entire career. Getting that rank change will impact your financial status, your entire career, and retirement. So it's something to think about if you would like to take advantage of that opportunity too. Now, I do know that it will not transfer out of the state of Kentucky. I believe that's a caveat of these cooperative rank change programs. And let me see if there's anything else that I get questions about. And I'll take, if you do have if any of this sparks a question, I'm going to hang around and answer any of the questions that you may have. So you might think of something else that I'm not thinking of, but it is a phenomenal opportunity for those. I do wish so badly that we could offer university credit. So I get a lot of teachers who already have their rank changes. They already have all those, but they might be interested in like getting a literacy endorsement. So they reach out and they ask about that, if we could get credit. We are currently trying very hard to seek university partners in order to do that, but that's not in place yet. So we don't have that in place, and we can't give credit for universities for degrees and whatnot. But we do, we are so tickled to have that opportunity to partner with the cooperatives to offer that rank change if that's something that you're interested in. So it was very important to us to make sure that this was the professional learning that we all hoped it would be. So we sent out a survey to our phase 1 participants. And I want you to keep in mind that when I sent out this survey, it was January of this year. And at that point in the learning, most of them had only completed 2 units. So it's a good time for me to say that during the 2-year professional learning, you will do 4 units a year, 8 units total. So we pace this out hopefully to not bombard you. It's very doable. It's a heavy lift, and I'll talk about that more later. It is a heavy lift for sure. I mean, you have a full-time job, responsibilities, you have families and friends of your own. So I understand completely that it is a heavy lift to do a professional learning for 2 years. But again, I think it's what I hear from the participants is that it is doable. So when we sent out this survey, we had 432 people respond to the survey. So that told me they had something to say. For almost 500 educators out of 1,800 plus, they wanted to give me feedback. So the feedback that they gave me was so positive. 95% of them said this was new information and this was relevant information to the role. And about that many said that the information that they have learned helped them to meet the needs of their students. Again, this was only 2 units in. And that first unit, I always say this because I'm very transparent, that first unit is tough. The first unit is all about the brain and how the brain maps the roadways and all the different parts of the brain and how they work together in order to learn to read. So that first unit it's grueling and it's tough, but once you get past that first unit, it's a lot easier. So very transparent there. That first unit's tough, but even that, taking that into consideration, they only had 2 units in, and they're saying this is new, this is relevant, this is helping me meet the needs of their students. So I get multiple testimonials. People, I have shared my telephone number, and they will send me texts, they'll send me pictures, they send me videos of their kids in their classrooms, and they'll tell me, you know, this child come to me in 3rd grade and did not know how to read, and look at him now. And it makes my heart so happy. But I want to share this one. This is from Courtney Line, and she's at the Hart County School District at Memorial Elementary. And she basically had that story. She said a 3rd grade student come to her, and he said, I don't know how to read and I can't read. So after her 2nd unit of letters, she started implementing some of the stuff that she had learned with that student. And she said she learned very quickly why he was saying all of that. He had a huge gap. And she said after using those specific strategies, he very quickly showed growth, almost an entire year's worth of growth on his universal screener, which is significant. And she said, you know, is he where he needs to be? No, but he's getting there. But she said the best part of his story is he no longer says he can't read. He volunteers to read, and he loves to read because he's got that confidence. She's given him strategies to help him with phonics and, you know, knowing his sounds so he can sound out the words, and he's got that confidence. And she said, which I think is very impactful too, that it's really changed her view on how she plans instruction in her classroom. All right, so the registration is officially open for phase 2, and we have 2 different courses. So I want to explain those very quickly. So our enrollment is going to happen from now. It started last Monday until it will close on August the 31st. So once you register, if you decide to do this and you register, then you will not hear from us until probably the 1st of September. And that is when you'll get a welcome email. You will, we'll start shipping out materials, because you will get not only a platform, like a college course. Many of us who have taken online classes through college, it's set up very much like that. So all of the learning, all 8 units are preloaded on that platform, and then it's paced out so that you can do the first 4 units within that first year. Many people choose during the summer to work ahead, during breaks to work ahead, and you can absolutely do that on the platform. But you will not hear from us until the end of, or the beginning of September. We'll ship out the login information for that platform. You also get free printed materials too. I am a visual person. I like to have things in my hand. I like to highlight. I like to bookmark. So that's been helpful for me too. So, and then the actual learning will start in October of 2023. And then you will have the rest of those months to complete the first 4 units of letters. So we have 2 different courses. The first course is Letters for Educators. Again, it's 2 years, 8 units. We also have a Letters for Administrators. And that last year, and this gets complicated, but I'm going to say it out loud just in case anybody has this question or had an administrator that completed it last year, so they don't understand the change. Last year, Letters for Administrators course was 1 year. It's a little different this coming year because Lexia, the owner of Letters, has kind of sunsetted that first program and don't offer it anymore because they realized they needed to include more. So we are doing the new course for Letters, and it is paced like the teachers, the Letters for Educators. So it's also 2 years this coming year. They have 5 units. The teachers have 8, but it's paced out just like the teachers. So that's a little bit different, but there's a registration link for each one of those courses. People ask me if they are a literacy coach or if they are a district person, which one should they choose? And that is all just kind of based on how much you want to know and how involved in the learning. So the Letters for Educators is really a deep dive into the information, really teaches you, gets into the specifics of how kids learn to read. The Letters for Administrators is more of an overview of the learning, so you can talk and lead discussions with your teachers in the building. And then it gives you some units about sustainability and capacity building within your school. So it's important for leaders to have that kind of information too. Let me think of what else before I go to this next part that I want to tell you about letters. Again, it's like a college course. It's set up in that way. You go through videos and information, and then there are checks for understanding. So essentially, after each unit, you will have an assessment. And let me just say, before anybody gets panicked about an assessment, it's open book. You could have your materials there in front of you. Like, nobody is monitoring that. And we want you to retain that information. It's to ensure that you get that information. So don't get me wrong, but you get 2 tries on every assessment. We want you to pass that assessment with at least an 80% proficiency rate. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. I will say, though, that the only caveat there is if you sign up to be a part of the CEO rank change program, they do have stipulations there. So they have a certain percentage they want you to make on those assessments as well in order to be certified. So those are all important pieces. There's also a bridge to practice piece where you will apply some of the learning strategies to 2 or 3 students in your classroom, and then you journal about that and talk about that. I feel like that piece, the people who really engage in that piece kind of come to the learning full circle because they can see it in their students. But there are ways, if you are a literacy coach and you don't have your own classroom, you can borrow students, from another teacher, that kind of thing. You can work around some of those, but that's also a piece. So there's assessments, the bridge practice work, and then the platform work itself. But when you get to the end of the 8 units at the end of year 2, and you complete that work, then you will be letters certified. The only other piece that I've not mentioned is at the end of each unit, you will attend a live virtual webinar. Now, I love the live sessions because, I work in the platform, I do the work, I do the assessments, but then a national letters facilitator, a trainer, gets on there and she pulls out some of the most important pieces, and goes through all that information. And it really helps me kind of to digest my learning. Districts are kind of doing that in all different ways. Some of them are able, and not every district is able to do so, but some of them are able to give PLC time to complete some of this work. Some of them are able to give substitutes for the live virtual webinars that you'll have at the end of each unit. Some districts are able to afford stipends for the learning or professional development credit. It's all kind of across the board on what districts are able to do. We as a state are not able to do any of that, but different districts are providing some of that support. We do offer the live virtual webinars in many different ways. So we offer that during the day. And there is a scheduling platform that you will get on, and you'll schedule what days work for you. And there's a multitude of days to choose from. So we do that during the day, we do early afternoon, we do evenings, and we do Saturdays. So, and you can take it in parts. So say my family keeps me very busy in the afternoon, so very involved in sports and other things. So say I have an afternoon 3-hour window one afternoon, I can take part 1 of unit 1, and then maybe on another day take part 2 of unit 1. So they're 6 hours long, and some of those are broken up if you'd like to take it in parts in 3-hour sessions. So I want to make sure that you leave here knowing all of the expectations of letters and know that what it can do for you. I will go back to that piece and say, I do feel like the people that have engaged with letters and taken it this first go round have said to me very loudly and very clearly, this is tough, it is difficult, but it is good. It is information I wish I had when I come into the classroom on my first day. I have educators that have 27, 28 years of experience that's taking letters, and they say to me, Christy, what I wouldn't give if I knew this on day 1. And that's what we're trying to do with Senate Bill 9. We're giving you that information so you can have it, and it will support you throughout your entire career. And hopefully our plan is to eventually, you can see teacher certification at the very bottom of your screen there. That is part of Senate Bill 9. They're changing the teacher test that you take in order to get certified to become an educator to align more to the science of how kids learn to read. So we're really hoping that we can get university partners on board, and they can change their instruction and resources to help teach our pre-service teachers this information. So you'll know from day one when a teacher graduates, they've got the information they need to know. So all of this, and this is the last thing that I'll talk about before I take any questions. Something that I always feel is very important to say is we want to try to prevent instead of intervene. So prevention instead of intervention. And the reason we want to do that, and well, let me go back. The how is through instruction, and that's through the professional learning. That is through the universal screeners and diagnostics I talked about to catch them and intervene early. But we do not have the time that it would take to intervene with our students in the way that they need. You can jump down there to third grade. So if a student has a gap when they go into third grade and they do not have the foundational learning they need, it could take 90 minutes to 3 hours a day of intervention over a long period of time. This is research-based to close that gap. None of you have 90 minutes, let alone 3 hours to intervene with students. So we have to think about how we could prevent our intervention students from even being there in the first place. And one of those pieces, beyond the learning that you will take with letters and with the universal screeners that will hopefully catch them early and you can intervene, is just having high quality instructional resources, a good, solid tier 1 comprehensive program. And that is something that we knew was a need. Our legislators have put it into Senate Bill 156 that has to be implemented by July of 2024, that our schools and districts have a comprehensive evidence-based reading program. Tier 1 basically is what that is, tier 1 program implemented in their schools by July 2024 for our K through 3 students. We have some resources on our website that will help you. We have a reading and writing instructional resource consumer guide. It is phenomenal. If any of you all are looking at or talking about purchasing a comprehensive tier 1 instructional program, this will help. And then anybody that ever reaches out to me or any of my team and says, what's a good resource? We always point them to the edreports.org. And that Ed Reports basically highlights the green rated resources that are on there that will say that basically these are the good ones. You don't want a yellow or a red rated resource. You want a green rated resource to help and implement. But I always try to put that little piece in there, because if we had good, strong tier 1 instruction in place, then that would help the majority of our students not have a reading improvement plan. So we've got to work on that piece in Kentucky too. Okay, and I do want to talk to you just a second about what's kind of on the horizon. So we are working currently, we are hiring staff currently to build out a literacy coaching model. And what this literacy coaching model will do is we are going to take the next year or so and train these literacy coaches before we stick them in schools. But our highest needs schools in the state of Kentucky, those schools that have the highest percent of novice in third grade, will then get a literacy coaching specialist to come into their school and help and be a resource and a guide for the teachers there to help them intervene with students and get them out of those gaps. So that is coming. Again, we're hiring literacy coaches currently at KDE. We hope to hire as many as 20 to 25 this first year, and then even build that out to 80 coaches when we're done. So we're looking to really invest in these coaches and make sure that they are ready to help our schools overcome these large percent of novice. That is just some resources to help you that I've talked about today. And again, my contact information. I love helping and supporting teachers and schools and districts with this information and with this learning. Any questions that you have, please email me, but I will stop talking now and see if anybody has a question they want to ask me while we're here today. I've given you a lot of information.
Feel free to unmute and ask questions or type it in the chat, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
No questions?
Christy, I do. One thing with the, I will say KVEC right now, we are looking into providing to see about a CEO of getting the rank change. But if we are not able to do it, where you all have signed up for this, I will email you the information on the CEO programs and being able to get the rank change. But the most important thing is to sign up for letters. You need to be in that first. But I'm also finding, and Christy, you correct me on this, the rank change programs, it's not just letters. There's other requirements that they're going to have to meet, is my understanding as I'm learning more about this. It's not letters alone, doing that alone. There would be additional work in addition to the letters work, is what I'm finding at this point. So I do want to make sure that we're upfront about that you realize that it's not just going through all of this and I'm in it and learning so much, and oh my goodness, wonderful tools for any teacher to have in their toolbox to be able to work with kids on literacy. We do have a question in the chat, Christy. It says, what grades do you suggest for this program? You may have said, but she's not remembering.
I didn't. So what our goal is to train every K-5 educator in the state of Kentucky. That is our big, goal, and that could be for anybody. So some teachers say, I really don't teach reading, I teach science. But in elementary, I have found, in working with elementary my entire career, we're all kind of reading teachers. So if this is something that you're interested in, literacy might not be your thing in 5th grade, but you're interested in helping and supporting your students in teaching them how to be better readers so they can be better at science and social studies and math too, then absolutely they can join. But it's K-5. And that's a question I get a lot too, is I'm a middle school teacher, my kids have huge gaps, can I join? And we absolutely know that is a need. Our funding only allows us to give this information or give this professional learning to K-5, but we are currently working with TNTP to develop a secondary, basically professional learning for our secondary educators that is targeted to them and their student needs, because we know that's a need. That's not gonna happen this year probably, but hopefully we'll have that available in the next year or so. There's no limit.
Okay, you saw that. That's a great question, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a great question.
Absolutely no limit. Again, we have funding to provide this professional learning for every K-5 educator and administrator in the state. So we want them all. We want to train them all. If the willing, we know that there's somebody that out there that probably won't be willing to do so, but we would love to train everybody. You're welcome.
They do provide, don't they, Christy, like a pacing guide of to kind of map out, and you don't have to follow that, but that is a great thing to have if you're one of those people that can stick to a schedule like that. Some of us have to wait for the breaks and maybe the weekend and when we work on it.
Yeah, me included. I'm in letters too. So I'm in the first cohort of letters myself. And I have found myself having to catch up on weekends or breaks and that kind of thing. But that's totally fine. And you could actually do the live virtual webinar before you start the unit work. It's flexible in that way. And again, if you get behind and you want to say, you know, I'll catch up on unit 4 this summer, then you can do that as well. You have the license for 2 years. From basically, we will start the license in September of 2023 if you join this cohort, and you will have it until September 2025 to complete that work, all 8 units. Anybody else?
Any other questions? Kind of like to give you a little bit more think time. Got that wait time we have to work on, don't we?
I will say while they're thinking and maybe thinking of another question, I also want to say how much I appreciate you all at least being interested in wanting to know more of this information, and just for what you do for our students every day. If you're testing, as Mary said, God bless you. I hope all of that goes well. I was in testing my entire career, because as soon as I thought I was going to become an administrator and get that off of my back, they made me a building assessment coordinator, and I kept it. So I understand the pain of testing. So thank you for all that you do for our students.
Well, we thank you, Christy, for coming and sharing this today. And we are going to have another session on June the 5th that we're going to be doing. So if you have some people in your building that would be interested in joining the session in June, that registration link was on the email I shared out, and it's also on our PL calendar. But I will also be sending you a copy of this recording for you all to be able to go back and listen to. If you have questions, you can always reach out to Christy. She's wonderful. She's really good about getting back with you. You can reach out to me. If I don't know the answer, I'll be emailing Christy if I don't know the answer, or asking around for the answers to the questions. But just a really great professional learning opportunity for you all. If you are really interested in getting a lot of great tools for your literacy toolbox to be able to work with kids.
And did you put that link? Oh, you did. You put the link in there. Thank you so much for that. So that link that Mary put in there goes to the page that you basically can sign up for the letters training.
Yes. And you will send me a copy of the PowerPoint, like a link to the PowerPoint, and I'll include that with the recording for them too, so that they can share that. Yeah, I am going to put another link in the chat. This is the feedback survey. And when you complete this, whatever email you put in the feedback survey, a certificate should be emailed to you for 1 hour of ELA credit, which most of your PD coordinators, if you still are needing PD credit, will maybe let that count for professional learning for you. So wait a minute. Yeah, that's it. Yep. So if you have any trouble with that link, let me know, and I will put some information. It should pre-fill and have the name of the training and the ELA number and Christy's name in already filled in for you. But if not, I'm going to put that in the chat as well, so that you have that in there. But if you don't have any questions and something comes to you, Christy, one question that I do have: what if something happens and you can't finish the training? I know that sometimes is a concern. And what is the, what happens if I'm not able to finish?
We really want you to be committed to the 2 years, but we know that life happens. You do sign a commitment at the end when you sign up for letters. You sign a commitment, and there's always that caveat in there that talks about reimbursement. So that scares people. At this point, we've not asked anybody that has dropped out of letters for reimbursement of the license, which is $1,500. Most of the people that have dropped out, it's been like major life happenings, lady's house burnt down. They were involved with the flooding earlier this year, that kind of thing. And of course, we're not, we are compassionate people. We're not going to charge you that. But I do want to caution you that this is, it's like taking a college class for 2 years. It's not the same amount of work, I don't think, but it is work. So I want you to before you fill out that registration, be committed to completing if at all possible. But there are circumstances, and again, we are flexible and try to work with people, and I will work with you in any way that I can to because a lot of people is like, oh, I've had some that's like, I am pregnant and that was not planned, and what do I do now? And so you have that license for 2 years. Even if you stop the work to say to go on maternity leave, you can pick that back up within that 2 year period and complete that. And so again, we're flexible, and that's a great question.
So if no other questions, just fill out that feedback survey for you to be able to get your certificate, and you're free to go. And once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule joining us today. We sure appreciate that.